Well, it's great to welcome you back to JCHS in this distance mode. Um, this will be a wonderful opportunity for us to share some information with you, and really grateful to you for having shared your questions with us in advance, so we could know what was on your minds. I think we've communicated out some information since some of you first submitted the questions, or you had questions about things that we've been communicating about. And no worries, we're happy to share everything in response to your questions. We're going to focus on the questions that you ask, and just as a matter of encouragement, if something we say triggers another question, or something we say isn't quite so clear, or you just have more questions, don't hesitate to email any one of the three of us who are on with you this afternoon. And so I'm going to start just by introducing you to the folks who are on with me this afternoon. So we have the Assistant Head of School, Michael Brody.
Hi, welcome. Good to see you all.
And the Dean of Students, the Dean for the 9th and 10th grade class, and also the person who so instrumental and was known to you so well because she was the advisor for all of the 9th grade students last year, Michelle Matz. Michelle?
Nice to see everybody. Welcome.
Yeah. So we were earlier today, Michael and Michelle and we were earlier with all of our colleagues, and this is our first day back all together. As you can imagine, there have been groups of us, different groups of us, all working all throughout the summer, but today was our first day to have everybody back virtually. And I want to share with you how excited our educators and our staff are to be right here in this screen with your students. And it was a palpable enthusiasm and excitement to get the year started, even though they, like you, are exhausted from what the summer has been, and still they're enthused. I think that is a testament not only to their resilience, but also to the kids that you are sharing with us, and to the students that you are bringing to our school. That's what makes them so enthused about things. So we're going to take your questions in a couple of bundles. We've gone through your questions, and we'll get started. I want to say, because I think it was on everybody's mind, when are we going to be back on campus? If you think you know, buy a lottery ticket. Buy 2 lottery tickets. If you think you know, buy one in the name of the school and one for yourself. And if you're right, that's awesome. We don't know when school will be back. We are very vigorously consulting with epidemiologists and with the Department of Public Health, so that when both the governor and then the Department of Public Health in San Francisco clear us and say schools are permitted to be open, which they have not yet said in San Francisco. In fact, just the opposite. San Francisco is a county health department that has been quite explicit. No schools, private, public, parochial, have permission in San Francisco to have in-person instruction, or to have students on campus in small groups, even at the high school level. No permission has been granted yet, which is why we made the decision a few weeks ago, hearing from DPH that they were unlikely to change that directive, that school is not yet permitted to be open anytime in August, not change that directive. We determined that we wanted to put all of our effort and energy into ensuring that our colleagues, our educators, and our staff were as prepared as they possibly could be to receive your students online, and to put our effort and energy into preparing for that. That's another reason why I think they're so excited, because they feel really prepared. the whole year is completely unpredictable and hard to prepare for. And yet in this moment, to start the school year, everybody is feeling pretty good and prepared. So that's why we made that decision to start in what we're calling campus mode number 4. That's where we're all learning at a distance. And I promise you, when it is time, when it is safe, and when it is permitted to be on campus, we will be on campus. Most likely when we start off on campus, we'll be in campus mode number 3, as we've been communicating about. That's the mode in which we have reduced density and reduced time on campus, so that students are only on campus, 50% of the students are on campus at any one time. That's in campus mode 3, moving all the way up to campus mode 2, if we are lucky enough to be able to do that later in the year. So I'll pause for now and turn it over to the next batch of your questions with my colleague, Michael Brody. Michael?
Hi. I want to address a sort of a set of questions around what we're doing to make the classes as engaging as we can. So this summer, we had all of our teachers engage in professional development courses through Global Online Academy. Global Online Academy is an online, it's not a full high school, but it's sort of an enrichment school that is online, that was started at Lakeside Academy in Seattle and spun off into its own online entity. And they've been, for about 10 years, been a real leader in independent school and international school online education. They also do professional development for teachers. So this summer, our teachers took 3 or 4, they offer 4 summer classes, and our teachers did 3 or 4 of the 4, including designing for online learning. There was a class in assessment. There was a class in wayfinding, and a class in student agency. So our teachers engage in those classes over the summer. Found them really useful, especially now that we're in the all online mode. They are very applicable. And also we had a set of teachers also who went out and became Google certified educators this summer, as we're moving all of our classes onto Google Classroom to simplify and centralize student information. And so we've had a set of teachers who went out and some people who are still finishing those classes through Google. I think we also had a lot of lessons learned last spring when we went to sort of had to scramble and go into emergency online school mode. So between what lessons learned last spring and the professional development this summer, I think we'll see a whole new round of creativity and energy being put into our online classes. So I'll pass it next to Michelle.
Great, thank you, Michael. So nice to see everybody. We were just talking with the 9th grade parents, and it was lovely to talk with them as well, but it's so nice to see a group of familiar faces. So I'm going to answer some questions about the kids' social and emotional needs. Quite a few of you raised some really valid questions and concerns about how JCHS is going to address the social emotional needs of your kids when we can't actually be together right now on campus. Before I answer that question, I want to apologize for the crying, if you could hear it. I am currently fostering some puppies and they are crying. So I apologize for that. So to address the social emotional needs of the kids, we spent quite a bit of time this summer really thinking through what we could do differently this year to address those needs. And we have some programs that we're going to be implementing, some of which we've had in the past and some of which are new to address the specific issues this year. We are going to be starting a program that we're calling the Tribe Program. The kids will be in groups of 6, 7, 8 kids with a faculty member with each group of kids. And those tribe groups will be meeting once a week to do some fun activities, to talk about more serious issues. It's just sort of a landing place for the kids. And hopefully the kids will make new connections through these tribes. There will, maybe the faculty member that's assigned to their particular tribe is a new adult to them, another opportunity to connect with adults at school. We are also going to have time over Zoom to keep the club program going. So the students will have an opportunity to remain in the clubs they might have been in last year, or to be in a new club, which also includes starting a new club. If there's something they want to do that we don't currently have a club for, that's always been an option at JCHS. Knesset, which is our student government, they're going to be leading programs throughout the year, some of which will be all school programs and some of which will be grade specific. They will be doing some really spirited community building programs. We have spirit games. There's a coffee house every year, which is a student talent show. There will be all sorts of friendly competitions, maybe some less than friendly competitions, all sorts of stuff that Knesset is gonna lead. On Friday, we've designated Friday as how Rabbi Ruben's going to talk about this a little bit more, but Friday will be a day when we're not doing academic work, but we still are going to be having quite a bit of JCHS programming. So Friday is going to be another opportunity where there are going to be various activities for the kids to join. So those are some of the programs that are more group related, but on an individual basis, Julie Beck, our school counselor, is still very much available to talk with you as parents, but also to meet one-on-one with the kids, as she's always done. Those meetings take place over Zoom. They're confidential, unless, of course, somebody is a danger to themselves or somebody else. So she is very in tune, obviously, with your kids and what's going on for them, and is a resource for them and for you to address the social and emotional needs. I'm also very much still available to your students and to you as the 9th grade dean. So those are some of the ways that we will be addressing the social emotional needs. And obviously, this is new territory for all of us. So we will be, the student support team meets regularly. We'll be meeting at least once a week. So as things come up, we will address those needs as they arise. I imagine there will be things that we will need to tweak to meet whatever needs come up as the year progresses.
So I just want to say that a lot of what our student life team has been working on, that Michelle was talking about curating some social experiences for students, came out of feedback that a number of you provided, and parents who were with JCHS last spring also provided, about how we could best support your students. And so I think keep that feedback coming. It's really important and helpful to us. One of the things of feedback that we've been hearing over the years is, and there was a couple of questions about it, it relates to why Friday is the way it is, and whether we're familiar with the research about teens and their brains and their sleep patterns, and could we start the school day later? And so even before COVID, we had been planning to introduce a late start day, one day a week in this new school year. So as we were now dealing with COVID, and we had that on our minds, and we were trying to figure out how do we take what we learned from students being in classes and change the number of blocks that a student is juggling at any one time, and concentrate their learning so that they're able to deepen it, and make it possible to take off campus and do virtually those things that we might not be able to be on campus to do. We came up and take into account as well the supposition and recommendation from the Weizmann Institute in Israel about how to respond to the pandemic and the way in which the pandemic spreads, to consider doing a 4-10 model, that is students being together for 4 days and then at home for 10 days, bringing all that together and recognizing that on Fridays we already are challenged with an early end time for Shabbat, in the sense of schedule, just challenged in terms of scheduling. We decided to make Friday be a day where there would be no class meetings, but would be a full day of different things for school. So tribe meetings, as Michelle described, the all-school assemblies, Hakel and Community Block moved out of Monday and Thursday and put onto Friday. Explicit office hours for faculty members to be available to students by appointment, that they'll set out times that their office hours make them available, and providing time as well for the adults to meet. So when we put all that together, the outcome was to make Friday an all virtual day, even when we're back on campus in the 50% mode or even the 100% mode. And also knowing the distances that so many of you and your students travel for JCHS, and knowing how complicated transportation and food service will be when we're back on campus, we also wanted to try to reduce the level of complexity by taking 20% of the days out of the equation. So all of that is what pointed us toward the Friday that we have, and we're feeling really good about all the positive ways in which we can focus on Friday outside of classroom instruction. All right, Michael?
I'm going to talk a little bit about grading. So some things, well, are going to go back to the way they were, in the sense that I guess you never made it through a year when things were normal. So maybe I ought to explain that. We will go back to a system with letter grades. So we went to this sort of pass, no pass at the end of last year. So although we will still be in distance learning, we are going to go back to a system of giving letter grades, and sticking with our system in which where you and your student will get regular grade updates. You'll still receive grades 5 or 6 times a year, depending on which quarter we're talking about. But the only grades that will go on the transcripts will be the final grades, either at the end of Q3, where some classes end, or the end of Q4, where the other classes end. And all the grades you receive up to that point will just be status update grades to that point. So that will go back to that system. And one of the things we will be keeping, however, from distance learning at the end of last year were the rubrics, the more extensive use of rubrics for summative assessments. So last spring, you may or may not have seen that students were getting rubrics that sort of defined what high pass and pass and not meant, and what the criteria were really explicitly. And because of things, it's how much harder it is to communicate, and because it's a great practice in education, we are going to, all teachers will be issuing those kind of rubrics for all summative assessments throughout the school year. So there's going to be a much more extensive use of those than there have been, and much more extensive and consistent use of those kind of rubrics than we had seen in the past. And on that, just one more note, someone asked, I thought it was an interesting question, which was a question that we had grappled with about chemistry. Like, how are you going to do chemistry or any science class without a lab? Which is a great question. So there's going to be a range of things happening. First of all, some supplies are going to come home when your student picks up their books. So you're going to get to facilitate some at-home chemistry experiments. So make sure the students put on the safety glasses. It's going to be good. There's nothing dangerous in there. It's just nothing dangerous in there. It's going to be okay. They're also going to be, the teachers are also going to be using the lab at JCHS to either record themselves doing labs, or to actually teach the class from the lab and be doing the lab with the students watching. And they're also, I'm not sure if the chemistry class found things that they liked, but I know the physics classes did find that there are online labs that students can watch. And so I know that the chemistry teacher, Mr. Fitch, was looking in to see if he could find online labs that he liked. So I'm not sure, so that may be part of the solution there as well. So we're still committed to lab science and plan to get there in some creative ways.
Right, Michelle?
Yes. There were some questions about your kids' advisors, how they go about getting an advisor. So last year, as you know, I was the advisor for all of the 9th graders. In 10th grade, students get another advisor that ideally stays with them for 3 years. And the very first Friday of school, Julie Beck will be meeting. We have grade meetings, and Julie Beck, the school counselor, will be meeting with the 10th graders to walk them through the process of getting an advisor. And what we ask the kids to do is give us a list of, I think it's maybe 3 or 4 people, 3 or 4 people on the JCHS faculty that the kids think would be a good advisor for them. We get those lists, we look at those lists, and Julie, Yael, and I get together and think this through and assign each of the kids their own advisor. We try to give kids their first choice. It doesn't always work. We cap advisees, I think, at 7 or 8 per advisor, because we want advisors to be able to have enough time for everybody. Sometimes an advisor will only have maybe 1 opening, but we do our best to match the kids up with somebody that they want as their advisor. Every so often, we think that there's an advisor that would be really excellent for a kid that isn't on the list, isn't on their list, and then we go to the student and say, what about this person? We think this person would be a great choice for you. We do want the kids to have agency in this. We think that's important. With that said, we also do put a lot of thought into doing what we think is the best match. If you have thoughts or concerns about any of this, I encourage you to reach out to me. And though each of your kids will have an advisor, which is more of their go-to person this year, last year I was very much the go-to person. This year the advisor will will sort of take that place, be more of the go-to person. With that said, I'm still very much here for your kids and for you. It's quite possible some of your questions might be better addressed by the advisor, who's going to have more, probably more information about your kids than I might this year, but nonetheless, I'm still very much here for your questions.
Great. There were a number of questions about numbers, so let me see if I can bundle them together. So one question was about the overall population of the school. On the first day of classes next week, we will be at JCHS's largest ever student population, over 190 students enrolled at JCHS. And it's very exciting and it's terrific. And thank you for all that you did over the last year to help us recruit more students to come to the school and to share what's awesome about JCHS with your friends in the community. There was another question that involves numbers, and that is, I don't think it applies to any of, I'm trying to remember if it applies to any of your kids or not. When we said before that Fridays will not have any class meetings, in fact, in the second quarter of the year, some AP science classes will have class meetings on Friday occasionally, because as we mapped out the year and we saw when the AP exam was relative to what we would be accomplishing with our staggered quarter system this year, which we implemented in order to maximize the learning that would be available for students in this potential distance or 50% mode. We discovered that there wouldn't be quite enough time to prepare students before the AP exam, particularly in the science AP classes. So some AP science classes will be having AP class meetings on Fridays, but not in the first quarter. So not to worry about that. Another question that's come in about numbers is the school's HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning system. And what is it doing to ensure the health and safety of students in the building? So a couple of things to know. One is that we have a very high level, the recommended level of filter for the system, a MARV 13. I don't know what that means, but because I just learned how to pronounce epidemiologist like 3 months ago. So now I'm working on my dictionary guide for HVAC. But I do know that the filters are up on the roof of the building. They're not picking up air, ambient air from anywhere other than the roof, and that in addition to these filters, which will be swapped out and replaced every 3 months, so we've increased the replacement protocol for those. We've also shifted the HVAC system from one that was recirculating a lot of air, because that's much more efficient for heating and for cooling, to take air that's already been cooled a bit in the building in summer, or air that's already been heated a bit in the building in winter, and just kind of put that back through the building after heating it a little bit more or cooling it a little bit more. We've stopped that, and we've shifted to 100% outside air coming into the building and then being pushed through the building through the HVAC system. So just want you to know that even though we're starting in distance mode, we're completely committed to being back on campus when that is possible. And so we've already been working on things like ventilation. And then the other question about numbers was, there was a question about, well, what if my family has been suffering economic distress on account of the pandemic? We understand that. We know it's a reality for many of our families, and our board is absolutely committed to making it possible for every student who is enrolled at JCHS to stay at JCHS. So if that's an issue for your family, a number of you have already reached out to us. Don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I will forward you to our finance office. So we have a new director of finance and operations, Larry Roadcap, Allison Brown, who you now know through two cycles of working with the school. Those of you who receive financial aid, Allison Brown took a job closer to home after 8 wonderful years at JCHS, and we wish her well. And fortunately, we were able to find a remarkable successor for her in Larry Roadcap. So if that's an issue for you or your family, please reach out to me or to Larry so that we can help you. Okay, Michael, your next range of stuff.
My next range of questions is about the after-school programs in sports and in theater. So, these are unfortunately things that we can't be in person for. So we really think it's important that students, but let's talk about sports first, that students maintain some physical activity during this time, whether it's through the school for some kind of PE credit or just on their own. So if you have the student who, wants to go for a run or walk the dogs or ride their bike, whatever they do, we really want to encourage students to get out and be active, even though we'll all be sitting at home a lot. If your student is interested in getting PE credit towards graduation, there'll be 2 options. One will be that we'll continue the independent PE program that we have had, where students can make a plan with Sean Moeller, the athletic director, and that you as the parent would verify, the student would keep a log of their hours if they were doing an online yoga class, or they went for a walk, or they, whatever they did, and that you would keep a log, the student would keep a log, and you would verify the log, and that a student could earn credit that way. JCHS is also going to be offering some after-school online PE classes also that are going to be led by the boys volleyball coach, and those will happen after school and could also earn a student PE credit if they attend those. So looking after your students' physical health in this time is as important as ever. And also, when it comes to theater, of course, we can't be in the theater. So Anne-Marie Ullman, who was the theater director last year, is going to be offering some after-school theater workshops in the first quarter. along with Claudio Silva, who is our new theater technical director. So there will be both technical theater and acting related workshops after school in the first quarter. And the hope is, if there's enough interest in these workshops and after school theater, that we could offer a winter show in some format, to be determined, whether it's a show on Zoom like we did last spring, or whether it's more of like a podcast style acting experience. So if your student is interested in doing the show this winter, please encourage them to sign up for the theater workshops. And we're hoping to arrange it so that a student could do both the PE program and the theater workshops if they're ready for an after school commitment kind of every day. Michelle.
Great, thank you. There were some questions about how your kids will get one-on-one help. And I know this has been addressed a little bit, but I just want to say again, the teachers will be having office hours on Friday, and they will also be available at other times throughout the week. It's just a matter of your students scheduling that with the teacher, which is something that I can certainly help your students do. So teachers will be available for one-on-one help. And as Rabbi Ruben also said, we have hired another person in our learning support department who will also be available for one-on-one meetings with students. So we've definitely upped the support this year. And, it's a little bit different. It's not, at JCHS, typically a student will see a teacher, or a teacher will see a student in the hallway and say, hey, you want to stop by for some help? And obviously we can't do that. But so we're aware that type of thing cannot happen this year. And we're aware of it. And we are hoping that by having set office hours, by having another person in the learning support department, that we will still be able to meet everybody's learning needs.
And I'm glad Michelle mentioned that. I don't know if I did actually in this call, but yes, so we have increased learning support staffing. And Michael, do you just want to say a word or two about Homework Cafe?
One of the other things we'll be offering after school, I think from roughly 3:30 to 4:30, would be a Monday through Thursday homework cafe, which would be a place where the learning support staff will be hosting sort of an open Zoom session where students can join and work on whatever they're working with, feel a little sense of community, and have someone there to help them as they can.
Yeah. So we get that this year is different for everybody, and we're trying to anticipate the ways in which it is so different for your students, and be prepared to meet them on that road of difference and navigating the school year. Some have asked about informal groups for sports or organized learning pods. And about this, I just want to talk about how explicit the Department of Public Health has been with schools in San Francisco about this. No school in San Francisco is currently permitted to organize or participate in the organizing of learning pods. The San Francisco Unified has actually issued a directive to families being really explicit about that for the public schools. But the Department of Public Health has also been explicit with private schools and parochial schools that we are not to be organizing learning pods. There are challenges in thinking about them around equity and fairness, but more importantly, and I think this is why the Public Health Department is involved in this, that they don't have a belief when it comes to teenagers in particular that learning pods are any different than any other kind of gathering. And a learning pod is virtually impossible in a high school mode where students are not able to sit in a dining room with 4 other kids who are taking the same classes. We just don't have the geographic concentration of students who are all taking the same classes to be able to do that and to do it safely. So we're not getting into the organizing learning pod business. And the same goes for the informal activities. You all live in different counties. You know just as well as we do that every county since about the end of May has had a slightly different reaction to the governor's directives, whether it's through the Department of Public Health or the County Office of Education. And while many of the counties are trying to act in harmony with each other, there are different directives, different protocols, and even different sensibilities about what is permitted. So JCHS is both bound by the San Francisco Department of Public Health, but we also need to be mindful of the protocols, guidelines, and directives that come from the 6 different counties that JCHS students come from. And so we're taking all that into account. And one of those is San Francisco is that we can't be organizing camp-like athletic activities, even though San Francisco permitted athletic camps to operate during the summer, but they're not permitting that in the school year with teams. So at least not yet. Like with everything else, once we're permitted to do it and can do it safely and be back together on Ellis Street or in some other way, we're going to explore every opportunity to do that because we know how much you value, how much your students value, and please understand how much we as educators value the opportunities to be face-to-face with students and with each other. And when we're able to do that, we'll do it. The other thing I wanted to, I'm going to give Michael and Michelle one last opportunity for any questions that might have been that we didn't catch already, but I think we pretty much ran through the questions, and then I will wrap up at the end. Michael, anything else from you?
Sure, let's talk about different sets of parent concerns as it results to classes. So in my conversation, for parents who've reached out to me, and if anybody wants to talk to me about it, I'm happy to. I have one set of concerned parents who say, my kid can't sit through 80-minute Zoom calls 4 times a day. That's too much. This is going to crush them. How are you going to make sure that they're not crushed by too many Zoom calls? And then parents on the other end of the spectrum saying, you've got to keep my kid occupied more. Like, how are you need to, they need to be on all those Zoom calls and be with teachers all the time. And so it's an interesting dilemma, that different dilemma for us, as we see different students having and families having different needs and different ideas about what will help their student be successful. So, and one of the big changes you'll see from last year is that all of their classes will be meeting every day with live face-to-face teacher interaction every day. And teachers are going to have an 80-minute block that they are going to be able to use flexibly in addition to having face-to-face time every day with all their students, to have students work in small groups, to have students work individually, to have one-on-one meetings with students, and all the kind of things that would happen while we were on campus. So we are really going to, we understand that different students have different needs and different things that help them be successful. And just like when we're on campus, we're going to use our time with them in a variety of ways to try to make sure we are reaching out to all students.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Michelle, any final questions in your bundle?
No, I was able to answer all of them already.
Oh, you're so efficient. Excellent. Great. So I just wanted to share by way of wrapping up. I started with how excited and enthused our colleagues are to be back in a direct learning experience with your students, and that is really very palpable. And so many of the things that you're asking about and that we've been trying to share with you, our thinking around, has to do with how we not only build but deepen relationships, students to students, educators to students, the school with you, those relationships are so crucial to what we're trying to accomplish as a school, and doing it in a way that is really part of who we are as the Jewish Community High School of the Bay. And so I wanted to share with you just a brief reflection from last week's Torah portion, Ekev, that describes the manna that fell from heaven and nourished our ancestors in the wilderness over their 40-year wandering. And in the Talmud, a class is recorded, and the students of Shimon Bar Yochai say, well, this manna that falls, why does it fall every day? You know, it fell 6 days a week. A double portion fell on Friday, so that they didn't have to harvest the manna on Shabbat. And so they knew it could be preserved over a period of time. Why did it have to come every day? That the students wanted to know. And Shimon Bar Yochai said, well, it's like a king of flesh and blood who has a child, and they want to give the child something to sustain the child, like an allowance. And if the king gave the allowance once a year, well, there'd be a once a year relationship or engagement between the king and the child. But if the king said, you know what, maybe I'll give out something a little bit every day, then every day there's a renewal of the relationship, there's that continuity, that expectation, and that deepening of the relationship over time with its constancy. And that's exactly what we're trying to do at JCHS. We are trying to maintain a constant, nourishing, vital, and important relationship with your students, with each other, your students with our educators, and the school with you, because that relationship is the most important building block of learning. And we take that really seriously, and we're very grateful to you for having made the decision to keep sharing your kids with JCHS and to keep having them learning with us. Our educators are excited to start the school year. I can't believe that our first day of classes is a week from this Thursday. Oh my goodness. Where did the summer go? Well, we all know the answer to that question, but thank you. Thanks for being part of our community. Thanks for letting us deepen the relationship with you and with your students. And don't let this be the end. I know it won't be, but don't let this be the end of any conversation. If you have questions after this info session or something comes to mind, don't hesitate to reach out to any one of the three of us. We'd be happy to answer your question. We'd also be happy to direct you to the person who could do a much better job of answering the question than we're able to do. And enjoy the rest of your late afternoon and evening, and take very good care. I look forward to seeing you back on Ellis Street. And until then, I'll see you on screen and in the ether. Take care, everybody.